Hello and welcome to another episode of 1000 Actually Fun Books Everyone Should Read. Today we're reviewing Bambi, also known sometimes as Bambi, A Life in the Woods. This is a classic fiction, over 100 years old. It is in the public domain. So because it's in the public domain, you can find it for free at Gutenberg Press. If you want to just read it online, off your phone, off the computer, without having to go to the library for it. And in fact, I'll try and remember, I'll stick a link in my description to the free version of the book. I haven't mentioned it before, but I am putting in the description links to the books, both that I'm reviewing and that are going to be upcoming in every description to Amazon. There are affiliate links, not that I think that it's going to give me any money, but if I'm looking at a book, I really like looking at Amazon and seeing their reviews there for whether, what people liked about a book, what people didn't. I mean, if you're watching these videos, then you probably like finding out what other people think about books. I will say, though, that as we discovered last week with the whole bunch of very positive reviews about a book that I absolutely hated, it's not always trustworthy what you find on Amazon, but it's there anyway in case you care. Coming back to the book, it is a very short book. It's only, in my version, was like 160 pages. I read it in one afternoon. It's pretty easy to read, and I would classify it as young adult. You might find it if you looked in the library in a juvenile fiction section. I really don't think it's juvenile fiction. It's. I think it would really upset kids to read it. You kind of know what the story is all about. You've seen the Disney movie probably. It's a little traumatizing, and the book is frankly more violent. Maybe not quite as emotionally tugging as the movie, because Bambi's mother does die. Spoilers there, right? But in the book, it's not quite as emotionally tugging. Like, he doesn't even notice that his mother falls behind it. Basically, at the end of the chapter is like he never saw his mother again, and that was it. But there's a lot of violence. Like, from the time that Bambi is a tiny fawn and sees a mouse killed till he's an adult stag, there's just, animals die all the time. So I personally don't consider this a good children's book. Young adult and older. And it's just a classic fiction that I think is good. Although very different. If you haven't read it, it's very similar to Jack London's Call of the Wild or White Fang in its depiction of animals. So I'll get to that back in a second. So brief summary, again, you've probably seen the movie, so this isn't going to come as a surprise. It is about a deer. A deer from the time he is born until he is a multi-year, maybe 30-year-old stag. Says he has gray in his fur, and so he ends up living a long time. And it's all the various experiences he goes through. This author, it was written in the 1920s, and it is very, I'll call it pro-environmentalism, well before that was a fashionable thing to be. It is animals. Usually in this, the bad guy is humanity. Very strongly that humans are almost a divine source. Totally you cannot predict, or they're a cruel, all-powerful being that come and kill other animals, and all you have to do is run away. That's the only thing you can do. And that's just the way that humans are in this book. And that's fine. It's just a very anti-hunting, I guess I want to put it that way. So if you're a hunter, maybe you wouldn't enjoy that. I can't say how realistic the hunting part is. I was kind of looking at it going, I wonder if this was true in the 1920s, that you could hunt at all these times and it's not now, or maybe this still is true. I really didn't know. So that was kind of an interesting point. I will say, though, that it's not hyper-focused on that. So if you didn't read the book, obviously, just like the movie, has man being the bad guy, but it's more about this deer trying to discover all the dangers and how to avoid them. What is it you need to do as a deer to live to be 30 years old? All the different little things that you need to know. The book has some differences, some striking differences from the movie. Not just the amount of violence. It doesn't have quite that comedy going to it. I don't think there's anything humorous in this book. It's more serious, but also like, as a fawn, it's kind of almost a coming of age type of book. You have that innocence of the fawn in childhood who speaks to grasshoppers, and then later on kind of is more indifferent to the other animals. What does that have to do with about me? I don't even care kind of attitude as you get older. And in fact, I'll read a little bit of it. Since it is in public domain, I could read the whole book to you, although I'm not going to subject you to that. Anyway, so some differences. In the movie, there's a wildfire. There is no fire in this book. However, one of the big differences is Feline, the love interest, has a twin brother. And he has an entire arc in the book that is basically it's another depiction, a completely separate from hunting, interaction with humans and how that can negatively impact wildlife. So that's kind of an interesting twist on this if you've never read it. I do recommend it. It is going on my list as a classic, fun book. It's just an easy read that's enjoyable. It's engaging. That's exactly what I want in these books. Whether it's a book like this where it's not really an adventure or a mystery or anything like that, but it's still fun. It's still interesting. It's still worth reading. Let's see, what else? I guess things that I like. So coming back to that idea of how the animals are depicted, with that realism there, I liked that. It's not an let me see if I can pronounce this word. Anthropomorphized animal where they like think like humans and maybe even dress or build things like humans. It's not like that. Instead, it's very, very grounded in reality. So what I mean by that is not just on how they don't have technology or don't have concepts that humans would have, but it's also a little bit in how the animals interact with each other. Like the concerns of a bird are not the same as the concerns of a deer, or not the same as the concerns of a fox. And not all animals really have anything to do with each other. And even when they do interact, they have very different worldviews or concerns or whatever. As an example, later on, or at the beginning, we'll just say at the beginning, Bambi interacts with a screech owl. And the screech owl loves to scare Bambi. And Bambi is never actually scared, but he, as a playful fawn, kind of, startles, "Oh, you scared me." And then later on, when he's a young adult and he's becoming aware of all the dangers that are out there for deer, and his mother has died, the screech owl comes and actually startles him. And then still further on, as he's an adult stag and a little bit more wise in the ways of the world, the screech owl comes to try and startle him. And not only does he not startle Bambi, but Bambi is kind of indifferent to pretending to be startled. And the screech owl kind of leaves offended that he wasn't startled. And Bambi doesn't care. And it's that kind of that changing, that growing up, but also the animals, they're very self-centered, not in a bad way, just in the way animals are. I mean, they can only focus on so much in their lives and they can't care about everything around them. I just thought that was so I put this as a positive thing. I think that that's a good depiction of the animals. But there is that negative side to that too, because it is so realistic, because you have animals dying left and right. It can get kind of, I don't know, it can either be really upsetting depending on how you view this, or it can be kind of feel remote, like, oh yeah, that one died, but I guess it's not that big of a deal, and that may bother you. So that can have a positive or negative impact. Negatively on this book, I don't really have much negative to say. I mean, I will say, on another positive note, it's not preachy. Even if it is pro-environmental, or I guess anti-hunting, it's not a book that preaches in your face about anything. Nobody gives this big long message about what people should or should not be doing. Instead, it's just short snippets of this is the way it is, and maybe it's bad, maybe it's good, but that's just the way it is. I did find out, which I didn't realize until I was looking up the book on Amazon to get a picture for the cover of this, but apparently the author wrote a whole bunch more. The author is Felix Salten, and he wrote, it looks like something like 6 more books fairly similar to this, some about different animals. Like one of them looks like it's from the point of view of a fox, and one of them is the point of view of Bambi's children. And I have no idea whether they're any good, but they're there. I was kind of surprising. I'm like, oh, look, he wrote more. Anyway, that's that book. Like I said, it's going to go on my list as something that I think people should read. I think it's a good book for what it is. Very different probably from anything else that I might have on this list. So it's good to have something very different like that. I can't think of anything else I had to say about that. I have kind of a shorter message on that. So my next book, I decided to pick a Western. I've never read a Western. I kind of think that I should like a Western because you got action and adventure and maybe a touch of romance, and seems like it should be exciting and fun, I would think. But like I said, I've never really read any. So when I think of Westerns, I think of 2 main authors, the classic Western writers, Zane Grey and Louis L'Amour, assuming that I pronounced that right. And because of those 2, I just kind of flipped a coin and I picked Zane Grey. And I picked Riders of the Purple Sage. So this is a classic Western, about as classic as you can get. I can't tell you anything about this book because I didn't even read the summary. I don't know. But I figure for a Western, doing just the basic classic Western sounds like a good place to start. It seemed to have decent reviews as far as, the kind of thing that if you like Westerns, you'll like this. So we'll try it and see. And I will let you know whether it's worth reading or not pretty soon. All right, well, I think that's everything. Not a lot to say this time comparatively, and that's okay. We'll catch you next time.